Named one of the Wall Street Journal's 10 best places to go in 2025, Traverse City is northern Michigan magic. Think sparkling blue waters, golden dunes, and of course, incredible food. This summer marks the debut of the Traverse City Food and Wine Festival, running August 20th through 24th. The event highlights both national and local chefs including Tyler Florence, Ji-Hae Kim, Mei Lin, and Kate Williams, and features ticketed dinners, a grand tasting tent, and wine tasting. Visit TraverseCityFoodAndWine.com for details. I love Maine lobster for its versatility in the kitchen and its iconic flavor. The sweetest lobster on earth, prepared in pasta, served chilled in a salad, and of course in a lobster roll. Maine's lobster fishery is among the most sustainable in the world, with every lobster harvested by hand, one trap at a time, from independently owned and operated day boats. Maine lobster can be purchased year-round, fresh or frozen, raw or pre-cooked, shell on or shell off, and with ready-to-eat and ready-to-use options. Visit lobsterfrommaine.com for details.
It's kind of freeing cooking, being a restaurateur and being a chef in Portland because I don't have to worry about as much of the external BS. And I get to just go into work and solely focus on making this delicious. And Portlanders root for Portland restaurants.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. Today's episode is extremely special. It's a survey of the wonderful city of Portland, Oregon. I got to visit this spring, and I share all my restaurant recs, all the places I got to visit, and I also get to catch up with two great chefs, Earl Nimsom of Langbaan and Gabriel Rucker of Le Pigeon. These are two legends of the Portland scene, and they share everything about their wonderful city and so much more. And Eliza and I catch up along the way about all my visits. It's a terrific episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Eliza, we have a lot to talk about. So on this episode, we're hearing from Earl Nimsom and Gabriel Rucker. So I'm not going to talk about Langbaan and Le Pigeon in this recap because obviously the interview will speak for itself. But I have some highlights to share from my trip to Portland.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into it. I go back to Portland every summer to visit my sister who lives there. So I have a couple spots that I like, but I'm always looking for new places to add into the rotation.
Well, it's such a great city. I mean, that's an understatement. And I've said this before on the show. It's one of these cities where the community keeps local businesses alive. You just don't feel like there's an overbearing corporate entity on every block. And I asked a couple locals this question because I wanted to know, is this like city government restricting expansion? And from the few people I spoke to, and I could be incorrect, it seems like it's not that. It's that the locals really want to support local. And what has happened is this community of restaurants flourishes. And of course, there's been ups and downs. Pandemic was very hard for all restaurants in our country. But I was there in April. And it just, at time after time, I was surprised. I was excited about cuisines from all over the world. I mean, I couldn't even say that there was a Portland cuisine outside of coffee, really. I mean, do you have from your visits, when you think about Portland as a city, is there like a definitive cuisine for you?
I think there's a lot of really different great food in Portland. I do think the produce in the Pacific Northwest is really, really good. The farmers markets I've been to in Portland, especially in the fall, I think are the best I've ever been to, probably. And that's spoken as a very proud Angelino at heart and a devoted New Yorker. So I think that is part of it. I think there are a lot of really amazing immigrant groups that have made Portland their home and have brought their food with them. And then also there's just this kind of style of quote unquote, new American, like farm to table, small plate food that has flourished there. But I'm really curious to hear about where you went and where you liked.
Absolutely. We'll get to the list. And I have to say from the jump, our friend Jordan Michelman, who is a food writer based in Portland, has lived there for years and years. He's the current restaurant critic of Portland Monthly, and he helped me put together my initial list and visited a couple of spots with us. And big thanks to Jordan for helping suss out like a lot of options. My Google map was like at 100 literally before I hit the trip, and I think I visited probably 20 places. I was really busy. Tamara was with me, and we had a really wonderful time. But first place is Cow Cow, and I I started there right off the plane, and it really spoke to me because they're doing Hawaiian cuisine in Portland. My father went to college in Hawaii and always spoke so highly of Hawaii, and I visited several times. And to me, in New York at least, and I could be wrong, I haven't had food like this that represents Hawaiian cuisine. And this is a pop-up turned restaurant from the chefs Tracy and Brandon Hirahara. They were the former chefs at and Longban, and I spoke about them with several people as I visited, and this was like truly one of the buzzier restaurants. And for me, the highlight was a dish called taco luau, which was taro leaves stewed slowly in coconut milk with chewy bits of octopus sprinkled throughout. It had kind of a sag feel to it, but the coconut broth brought it to an incredible level. And this was part of this incredible Hawaiian plate lunch that I had, which included Kalua pig, this amazing mac salad, big old noodles, and just a beautiful balance there. There was a really mild japchae on the plate with rice, and they had this thing called this vinegary chili pepper water. I think they call it pepper water, and it was in a small bowl, and you could spoon it all over the plate. We tried a poke bowl as well, and really, really great vibe in there. And to me, some of the finest Hawaiian cuisine I've had outside of Hawaii.
Yeah, that sounds really delicious. I love a good mac salad, and I haven't been to this restaurant, but I've been to the restaurants that they were at previously, so I have some sense of it.
Really, really terrific place. Walking down the street of Alberta, I got to pop into truly one of my favorite cookbook stores in the country, Vivian Culinary Books. Have you popped in there yourself?
No, it's been on my list, but I haven't been.
I think do they carry Cake Scene?
I don't think so, but maybe I'll send them an email.
They should. It's a really great place. The owner is a former chef named Robin Wheelwright. And, Robin has curated this store that's flooded with light. There's a kitchen in the center of it. And I love that there's a demo kitchen that's kind of like really well appointed with all sorts of vinegars and cooking and chili peppers and chili flakes, and really it's a working kitchen. It's in kind of the center of the space, but combing the walls, you're seeing all the latest and greatest, many of the books we speak about on the show. Of course, plenty of titles that you can pick up there that are new, and then backlists from several years back. But also what you are going to get there is an antiquarian book selection that is well curated from Robin. We're talking about old Julia Child. We're talking about periodicals from the 50s and 60s. I found this really cool pocket chef's recipe book from the 1940s.
Cool.
That I'd never seen. It was pocket size for a chef's jacket, and some of the recipes in there were wild. I was eyeing that one. I'll maybe pick it up later. But that's Vivian Culinary Books right on Alberta. If you're in town and you're interested in food, writing, and cookbooks, you got to check it out.
Okay, where else did you go?
All right, this is the portion of the conversation where I talk about coffee. Now, I talked to Jordan. He founded Sprudge, of course, and has written about coffee for years. And I was kind of trying to get a sense. I can't go to all the coffee shops, and I've spent a lot of time in Portland over the past 3 years. I think I've been there 3 or 4 times, and I've been to Stumptown, Heart, the new Puff, which is from Dwayne Sorensen, the founder of Stumptown, and many other shops. And I asked Jordan, I was like, recommend a couple coffee places that we can go to, that I can go to and feel like not a local that's corny, but like feel like I'm part of this coffee community. And right away he was like, go to Extracto Coffee. And I went 3 times when I was there. It was right near our hotel. And I thought this was really, really cool. It's from Christopher Brady. He founded it in 2006. And Christopher Brady is an interesting guy. He is also the bassist of the influential sub pop band Pond, kind of a grunge influencer of sorts, like early sub pop. I actually was checking out some Spotify. I was like, this is good. But Christopher has run the shop for nearly 20 years, and it's right in Concordia. It's like in Northeast, and it's really just a place that I want to hang out at. A beautiful. Lots of light in the room, and it has a great pastry case, but really the coffee is what you're there for. And they roast their own on a 1951 Probot, and it's just exceptional roasting. And I know that's like truly the baseline for Portland. There's incredible coffee there, but Extracto was a place that I just was drawn to because of the vibe, because of the community there. I was there on a Saturday morning. There were like people with their kids, and it was just like felt very neighborhoody. And it's maybe not the like on the big buzzy coffee list, but I just love this place.
Yeah, I have not spent as much time in that part of town, but I feel like all the coffee I've had in Portland has been excellent, so I have no doubt.
It was great. And then on kind of the opposite side of the spectrum, I got to visit Electrica Coffee House, which to me is doing an incredible thing. It's from Seiji Nambu. And Seiji is somebody who has written about food. He's a writer. He produces events. And it's located in Northwest Portland in kind of like an industrial area in the Schoolhouse Electric and Supply Company, this major building where Schoolhouse has their big showroom there. So if you love Schoolhouse, you can see all the great things. And really, this coffee shop is really, really focused. The coffees are coming from primarily Mexico, and the teas, so it's a coffee house and tea shop, the teas are hand-selected by Seiji, who goes to Japan 4 or 5 times a year and hand selects teas from Kyoto primarily, but also throughout Japan. And I just really enjoyed the coffee. I had a naturally processed pour over from a Mexico City roaster, and I had some great teas that Seiji had presented us from his recent travels. It was one of those suitcase teas that he brought back, and I felt really grateful that he was sharing those with us. But it's called Electric Coffee House, and if you're into trying Mexican coffees, this is really where you want to be.
Okay, where else?
Well, I'm going to pivot and switch from the new to kind of the established. And this is the restaurant Higgins. Do you know about Higgins at all?
No.
So Higgins is a place, when I was sharing the list with a lot of locals, some journalists and folks, because I really wanted to make sure we were trying to capture Portland, which is challenging in one weekend visit. But Higgins is an establishment. It's in Southwest, which is kind of the downtown, you would call it. And it was opened in 1994 by Greg Higgins. And in the best way, it feels like nothing has changed since 1994. Just the style of service, the servers wearing, very, I would say, more formal clothing than you would expect in most Portland restaurants. And the restaurant's split into 2 sides. There's a light flooded dining room and a darker, moodier bar area. And I had a wonderful lunch there that, to me, was capturing the spirit of the 90s in the best way. And I know Greg Higgins is a legend in Portland and really kind of kicked off Farm to Table there in 94 and really used that language on the menu at a time when that was pretty new. But we were there in spring, and many of the dishes I'm going to talk about are informed by this wonderful April in Portland, which is everything is shooting out of the ground. And we had this amazing asparagus with kind of a sesame spinach kind of duo with pickled daikon and a tahini dressing. It was a cold salad, and asparagus was so delicious at that time of year. And I had a salad that Jordan said this is the classic Portland salad. Some may disagree, but I really enjoyed it. It was spring greens, toasted hazelnuts, herb vinaigrette, and blue cheese. Does that ring a bell? Does that connect with you as a Portland salad?
I don't think I've spent enough time in Portland, but it does sound like a very delicious salad.
Yeah, it was terrific. And I saw a lot of hazelnut and blue cheese pairings in the city. So that to me felt like I was having a great Portland salad. And what they're mostly known for is their house charcuterie. And they do it all in-house, which is kind of a rarity these days. And I loved it. I mean, it was a lot of saucisson and some head cheese and some pâtés with all the cornichons and pickles that you would expect, with great house-made crackers and some beautiful cheeses. And it's called Higgins' restaurant in Portland. And it's just, I loved the vibe there. It gave me a little Michael's in a Portland way. And I want to support these restaurants that have been around for 30 plus years.
Yeah, I think whenever there's an establishment that's really kind of settled into the framework of a city, it's nice to go there.
Yeah. So, Eliza, we'll be back later in the episode with more of my visit to Portland and some of the restaurants I visited, but there's many more to come.
Looking forward to it.
Hey, podcast listeners. I'm Chris Morocco, food director of Bon Appetit and Epicurious, and host of the Dinner SOS podcast. Each week on the show, we bring the expertise of the Bon Appetit test kitchen to your kitchen. And this season, we've got a little something for everyone. We're debating whether spring produce is actually worth all the hype, solving your hosting anxieties, and helping you become a better baker with our BA Bake Club episodes on Dinner SOS.
Gabriel Rucker, welcome. This is Taste. How are you?
I am fantastic.
So cool to speak with you. I saw you out in Portland a couple weeks ago when I had an incredible meal at Le Pigeon, and we'll talk all about that. And in this episode, we're covering your fine city in so many ways. I had a great time in Portland. It's truly one of my favorite cities in the world to dine out. And I have to ask you this tough question because I know you're busy, you have children, so you're not like out and about all the time. But I just wanted to know, when you have that moment to be away from your restaurants, to have a meal in Portland, where are you going?
So that, yeah, you kind of prefaced that really well. Um, my wife and I do live a very busy life. We have 3 kids and they play a ton of sports. Some of them play 2 sports at one time. So almost every night is 1 to 3 sporting events, which is one of the beautiful things in life. But that has changed my our going out habits from the way it was when we were younger. We also moved out of Portland proper about 8 years ago down to the city of Milwaukee, which is about 20 to 25 minutes south of Portland, which was a great move. We have like a half of an acre. It kind of saved our sanity in the pandemic because we were able to like create a little family farm and really turn that into like a passion project. So that being said, a lot of our eating is like little spots in our neighborhood that we like. There's a taqueria called Taqueria Santa Cruz, which is there's a couple Santa Cruzes, but this one is in the back of a little meat market in Milwaukee that they make the tortillas, and I love that. There's a Thai place called Makin that is in like an industrial park about 10 minutes from our house that is a family favorite as well. My wife and I absolutely love it. We know the owners. You go in there, it's got that like family feel, and you go in and they like, you're just welcomed, which is I think something that I try to convey in my own restaurants and has led to one of the successes of Le Pigeon, especially in the early days when I was manning the chef's counter 5 nights a week. When you walk into a place that you go back to a number of times and like the owner is the first person that's smiling at you and recognizes you, that makes you want to go back, and that makes you want to root for that restaurant and support it and maybe talk about it on a podcast. But when it comes time to like, hey, there's no sports, the kids are being watched, let's go out on a date. I think that a couple of recent really good meals I've had in Portland, Phuket Cafe. I know you dined at Long Bon, which is like in the back of Phuket Cafe, and I have really enjoyed some nice meals at Long Bon back when they were in their past location. Haven't done the Long Bon experience in the new location, but Phuket Cafe I think has hands down the best pork chop in Portland, and it's like one of those craveable dishes that I tell people to go and get. Coquine is at the top of Mount Tabor,
It's
and that
so
is just
amazing.
it,
I
I mean,
what a special place.
it's just rock solid cooking, and it's like I think I always appreciate going and eating people's food. I don't want to go and eat people's food that be like, oh, that's exactly the way I cook. I want to go and eat people's food that makes me admire and makes me think that's the way I want to cook. And I think that that's what Katie does. Especially just like the way that she makes you feel like you're eating the earth. Um, like you're tasting Oregon when you're eating at Coquine. And so I think that that is a special thing. And she definitely embodies the less is more philosophy, which is once again not my cooking style. Um, and so that's just something I really admire. And then another really really good meal I had, and I'm going to kind of name drop two former uh, cooks of my restaurant. And at this point in my career, I think one of the things that I attribute to being successful is when people have spent time in my kitchen and gone on to do amazing things. Um, that's really special to me. So I recently had a birthday dinner at a restaurant called 82 Acres. A chef named Will Persh, who had like a pop up pseudo restaurant called Hold Fast, and he was a real real young up and comer back in the early days of Le Pigeon and just really hungry. He was the kid that was like traveling all over the world to do stages. Um, Came back, did this amazing kind of like pop up hold fast restaurant with another chef named Joel, who has L'Orange in Portland. And that kind of fizzled out. And then he went out to a farm in wine country uh, and took over as a like kind of like a chef at like a bed and breakfast farm. Um, and that farm has 82 acres. And then and they decided to open a restaurant up in Portland, and so he's leading that kitchen, and I was just blown away. That was just, to me, 82 acres is kind of what a quintessential Portland restaurant, what made Portland, that got it on the map, which is just like rock solid food, Pacific Northwest to its core, and every bite just tasted absolutely delicious. There wasn't like bells, whistles, like crazy techniques, but it was just like it was the best meal I've had this year eating out in a restaurant, and it made me smile. And that's what I want out of dinner.
I love the reference of Portland, and the definitive characteristic of a Portland restaurant, because I've really like tried to articulate that my point of view on it as somebody who's not from there, who's visited many times, and I want to hear from you going back to 2011 when you won the Rising Star Chef Award at the James Beard Foundation, which is a huge award. I mean, it's an amazing accomplishment winning that award, and it shows like a great trajectory for a chef. And I want to hear about Portland in 2011, about what the scene was like. This was such an important time. It was really when Portland and Le Pigeon is a place that really was an anchor, along with some other important chefs, for making Portland a national city to visit for food. What's it like in 2011 running restaurants, and what's the scene like?
Not to steamroll your podcast, but I think we should go back a little bit further, because Portland, when I showed up in 2002, was like before the New York, before Portland was like the had its moment of being kind of like the media darling food city. Or maybe we're still in our moment, we're still doing well, but we definitely had like a moment, right? We could
I mean, you're doing well beyond my wildest expectations from my last 3 visits in 2.5 years. Like,
no,
it's incredible.
But there was but America kind of had a fascination with Portland as a food city, and it was like we were the darling for a little while. But when I showed up, it was, and that's when I referenced that restaurant, 82 Acres. It was nostalgic, because it made me feel like when I had just moved to Portland and I was eating out. It made me feel like the food at 82 Acres made me feel like when I showed up to apply for a job at Paley's place, and Vitaly Paley, the chef, was the one that answered the door with a 12 quart of soaking bone marrow bones in his hand, which would later become the dish that just left me speechless, that I got to cook with escargot and bordelaise sauce. Wildwood with Corey Schreiber, which was right across the street from Paley's place. And you had these two just like kind of pantheons of Portland dining across the street from each other, that were just like, food was literally just like coming in the back door from like dirty farmers that had just dug the potatoes up. And, I came from California, which is a produce mecca, but the systems weren't the same. And it wasn't, I had not experienced that same kind of connectivity and cooking with not what do I want to make, but what does Oregon want me to make? And so that was kind of my introduction to this amazing area. And the food had heart, the food had soul, but the food wasn't trying to be too much. And so when I got a job at Paley's place, I was very young still. I think I was 22 years old. And at Paley's, the cooks had a lot of creative freedom, and I had a lot of creative freedom previously in all of my jobs, which has led to a lot of, we can talk about later my style and how I've developed it. But I had a lot of creative freedom. You would, be responsible for canapes, for veg entree, for specials. And, I'm coming from California. I haven't had a lot of training. And so most of what I aspire to do was like looking at the French Laundry cookbook, looking at, what Grant Atkins was making at Alinea up and coming. I was trying to do too much because I was fascinated by beautiful food and pictures. And so they actually nicknamed me Cece because they were like, that's California cuisine. That's California cuisine. And I was trying to stack things and make it high. And, Vitali's wife would not berate me in a fun way because I was making delicious food, but she was just like, why are you trying to stack it so high? Why that's, and I learned to make the food delicious and start with the heart and the soul of the plate of food and then naturally make it beautiful versus as a young cook, I was trying to make the dish look the way I wanted and then make it taste the way I wanted secondary. So that was important. But there wasn't as many choices back then. And it was a little bit funkier and definitely not as progressive in its dining, but it had a heart and it had a soul and it had grit. The dining scene had grit.
I mean, that's the narrative in 2011 when it became the darling, which kind of extended, I would say, through the pandemic. And of course, everything kind of changed at that moment for the national scene. But like that grit, but I also clearly think the city is so local. You don't see big boxes as much as you would in other cities of similar size. And of course, it's self-selecting. It's got a community of diners who are really discerning, who really know about food and care about it in a way that is supports restaurants doing the good stuff like yourself. And I think about names like, Naomi Pomeroy and Andy Ricker and many others of your peers and yourself. And like these chefs from Portland, they kind of became stars. They all did cookbooks, got on TV. I mean, it was kind of amazing to see that moment. Really, it was almost like overnight that you all kind of became figures.
Yeah. So I think that Portland has kind of a magical thing in its restaurants and its food scene that people in big cities actually crave. Because I think and big like New York, San Francisco, LA, I love going to eat at those cities, but it can also be fatiguing, the dining scene in those cities, and it's a thing. And Portland restaurants, Portlanders don't want any of the bullshit. They just care about, like I said, the smile on the employee's face, the food that's on their plate, and the good grape juice that's in their glass or a cocktail or whatever it is, And so it's kind of freeing being a restaurateur and being a chef in Portland because I don't have to worry about as much of the external BS. And I get to just go into work and solely focus on like making this delicious. And Portlanders root for Portland restaurants. And Portland chefs root for other Portland chefs. And Portland bartenders root for other Portland bars. And coming from California, that was the first thing that I noticed is that Portland has this kind of we're all in it together attitude. And it's kind of like a stronger together attitude in this city. Like another chef's success is my success because we are a small market. And if we're all kind of like cohesively working towards this goal of kind of creating this great food scene, then Portland itself succeeds and then we all succeed.
Let's talk about your food at Le Pigeon right now. I think you made the shift to a set menu after the pandemic, and it really shows this hyper creativity, this seasonality. I mean, I was there in spring, so I was tasting so many spring produce. They had hamachi with beet and rhubarb, wagyu dumplings with morel and green garlic, foie gras and duck lumpia. I mean, it all was so seasonal and so delicious. And talk about the way your approach has shifted into this modern time, menu format being a fixed menu, and then just in general, the cooking there.
Sure. So you mentioned COVID. obviously, and things changing. Le Pigeon, the evolution was just a, small, adventurous, bistro-y style menu, heavily influenced by offcuts, and then grew in popularity and grew busier, but still holding true to that. And I think we will always hold true to, using adventurous combinations and interesting cuts of meat. But around 2009, 2010, we realized that diners kind of would come in and be like, well, just feed us. And so we always had an a la carte menu, but then people would be like, just make me a tasting menu. And so then we started offering a tasting menu, but it wasn't like, hey, this is the tasting menu. It was just the chefs can just make you a tasting menu. You could have 5 or 7 courses. And I would literally be cooking and I would look at the group of people and I would judge them. Not in a negative way, but I would be like, well, these people look like they came to town for a bachelor party and to go crazy. So I'm going to kill them. Or I would see some, maybe some people that were a little bit older that looked like they had really dressed up for dinner. And I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to try and give them a little bit of a lighter, more progressive tasting menu. But it was all dishes that were off our menu. Everything was designed to be the menu at that point. Everything was designed to be a full size portion that you could order a la carte, or we could pare it down to a tasting menu size portion. And that was the identity of the restaurant. And it was beautiful. It was very frenetic. It was busy, it was loud, it was bustling, it was full. People were packed in like sardines, and life was very, very good. And we were having a blast. Flash forward to the pandemic and getting the chance to reopen and serve, if we were lucky, 20 customers a night with spacing it out and, just doing the best we can. And it was like, well, I can't have 20 customers come in and maybe someone just gets like a salad and an appetizer. And so we were like, well, we do, people love our tasting menu. So let's just offer a 5-course tasting menu. Everyone can prepay and it'll be easy. And we can kind of pencil out, we know that we can make this work and we can employ a good amount of people doing it. And we can, make ends meet with that and the million other things we were doing. It just went over well. And at a certain point, Andy, Fort Gang, my partner, and I looked at each other as soon as we could kind of trickled up. And it was like, okay, well, now we can do 30 people. And we're like, hey, these numbers pencil out. This is kind of the direction the restaurant was wanting us to go with how many people were choosing that chef's tasting menu option before the pandemic. And it was like kind of like a 50-50 split, then a 60-40 split. And so it was like, this is, naturally the way kind of the direction that people were wanting to go. But before the pandemic, if we were to make a big change like that, I think it would have been kind of like an outcry, right? Like, you can't change what you're doing. And so what the pandemic did was afforded us the excuse or the reason behind why we made that change. And also, we do have a hustling and bustling a la carte restaurant that serves very adventurous, fun food right next door.
Yeah,
so it's
I can't ignore Canard next door, which terrific restaurant too, and a little bit different style. And right, you can't ignore that place.
So what happened was before the pandemic, Canard was small plates, more of a wine bar. And that was like, hey, we're gonna kind of create a waiting area for not a waiting area, but like a place like Le Pigeon had overflow, right? Like sometimes you'd come to dinner and it'd be like, hey, it's going to be an hour wait. So we created a place for people to go and have some oysters and some wine and wait, and kind of small plates. And then the same thing in the pandemic with Canard. It was like, well, we're going to reopen, but we need to make ends meet and make it pencil out. So Canard kind of became like regular, like appetizer, entree, dessert style dining. And then so when Le Pigeon went to tasting menu only, then Canard kind of became your a la carte version of what Le Pigeon was before, in loosely. And so yeah, now we're doing the tasting menu. Do I miss the old days of like that absolutely like frantic, crazy, loud Wu-Tang Clan playing, just high energy Le Pigeon? Absolutely. As a businessman and a chef, am I glad that I have like the opportunity to offer like diverse dining styles and experiences in my restaurant? Absolutely. Like you can't have it all. And the tasting menu format has done really well for us. It's still controlled chaos, which is fun, you know. And if I'm working the line that night, it's probably a little bit more. I try, you know, I'm kind of the only one that still works there, other than Andy, my business partner, that from the old school, from the old days. So I still try and bring some of that like kind of chaotic, fun energy to
You'll
service.
pop in some extra courses during the tasting.
Yeah, and just like make it a little bit more loud, joke with people a little bit more, have a little bit more of a just a more of a raucous vibe when I'm on the line, because that's the restaurant that I created 20 years ago.
Let's talk about your cookbook. 10 Speed Press published your book, Le Pigeon, Cooking at the Dirty Bird. Iconic cover. I feel like it really slid into this this era of restaurant books, really going above and beyond just a tribute to the restaurant. There was a lot of personality in it. It really told the story of the restaurant, but yourself. Talk about making that book, because it's really one of my favorites from that era of the restaurant book. I think it was a peak era for restaurant books.
I don't know that the restaurant book is as prevalent these days as it was, right? Like that now it's like the what can you make at home? It's more like the what can you make at home book again, or like
Yeah.
the like celebrity chef, like how to cook healthy food at home. And that you know, it was right time, right place. I also don't know that as a commercial success, Le Pigeon, that Cooking at the Dirty Bird was a commercial success. But it did everything I wanted it to do, which is it was on line cooks' shelves at their house. And it was a book that my peers bought. That being said, making that cookbook was one of the hardest things I've done in my career as far as like projects, for a number of reasons. One, sitting in front of a computer and typing out recipes and writing is not my forte. It did help me in my recipe writing for the restaurant for sure. Two, it was a real tough time in my life. I actually got sober like 2 months after that cookbook came out. And so like my drinking and drug use was probably at its worst while I was trying to make that cookbook. And also my wife was pregnant with our second child, and she was born not 2 days before the release of that cookbook. And so it was like this accumulation of a lot of big moments in my life and things that were new and challenges, not to mention me being at kind of my lowest point with a battle that I was fighting with drugs and alcohol, which I eventually overcame. And so I think that writing that cookbook was one of the things that led to me kind of hitting my bottom. But then it was released a couple months later. I made huge changes in my life, and I'm super duper proud of it. I also need to acknowledge that like working with Meredith Erickson on that book was amazing. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She wrote Joe. I mean, Joe Beef is like one of the most amazing cookbooks ever. And getting to work with her and her wanting to work with us, she embodied that like kind of freewheeling, shooting from the hip attitude that Cooking at Le Pigeon was in those days, and that those recipes were. And so having that cookbook on people's shelves or on my shelf at my house is now something that was super difficult for me to do from a like actual work and do it perspective, but it's something that I'm extremely proud of. And when I look at that book, I think that came out the way I wanted it to come out.
Great story there, Gabriel, and I think that I'm happy you shared overcoming drug and alcohol abuse, and it's something that you take very seriously and you've promoted in organizations. And back to the book, I think it's it's really a document of a time and place, and that's why cookbooks are so powerful, especially restaurant cookbooks. When you go back into a time, you can really learn about the style of cooking through the eras, through the generations. We're working on a big piece at Taste on the Charlie Trotter cookbook, which was, I'm sure you own that. I'm sure you've read.
The dessert cookbook probably had the most impact on me because before I moved to Portland, I told you earlier in the podcast that I in my entire career, I've been in charge of like creating dishes and having to be creative. And when I left Napa, where I grew up, and moved to Santa Cruz and got a job at a restaurant, I was the pastry chef at 20 years old with no pastry experience. And so I would go home at night and just pour through Charlie Trotter's desserts and try and not replicate those desserts, but I mean, the flavor combinations and the stuff that he was doing back in the 90s really inspired a lot of the stuff that I aspired to create, in my very early days of thinking about flavor and texture and combinations.
That's the power of cookbooks right there, from a professional point of view, at least. But I think for a home cook who's ambitious, you can learn so much about the eras, and it's cool to hear about that. You took that book and ran with it.
And as a cookbook writer, I never want someone to open up my cookbook and just make one of those recipes from start to finish, with the exception of a couple of them, right? We had to put a couple of recipes in there that were like, hey, a novice cook can just go from point A to point B and have this salad on their plate. But I think that the real point of a cookbook, especially a restaurant cookbook, is for someone to open it up and think, not what did they do and how can I do it exactly the same way, but what did they do? And then I can go to the farmer's market and what can I do? And so, if you're looking at a recipe in a restaurant cookbook, don't make that exact recipe. Make part of that recipe and then make the rest of what you create your own and use it as a jumping off point. And I think that the cookbook should really be jumping off points for your own cooking, not replicating someone else's cooking.
I agree with you fully. It's a great, great idea with restaurant books. Gabriel Rucker, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste. Earl Nimsom, it's so great to speak with you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Well, let's go right into it. You run an incredible range of restaurants: Eam, Hat Yai, Langban, Padi, Phuket Cafe, Yaowarat. I've spoken about many of them on the show. We've had guests speak about them. And I just want to know from you, what's the common thread that ties all of these restaurants together?
So first of all, the flavors of each one is bold. The flavors are unapologetic as what we have in the country, and also respect to tradition. And then when we create something, we're trying to have a balance of creativities and feel personal and generous. That's what when we do something, but also have a deep root to what exactly going on in the country.
Yeah, I mean, it ranges. You've got noodles and you've got curries and you've got the North represented. You've got Bangkok represented. You've got Southern Islands represented. How do you think about regionality in Thailand when you're putting together these restaurants?
So when we first do something, it's more about what I grew up eating, childhood memory at first. And then Hat Yai is Southern, which is where my dad's side is from. So we did the menu for that restaurant at Langban when we first opened. And the sad part about the tasting menu restaurant is once it's finished, it's never coming back. So one of the dishes on the menu was the fried chicken and sticky rice that sort of remind me of my childhood, grew up eating. So one of the partner was a beverage director for us, and he wanted to do something. He actually wanted to open a bar, and he asked me to help with the food. And I was like, okay, we have this fried chicken and curry and roti and sticky rice. So it could be good for the bar and Thai style. And then eventually I feel like there's a lot more to offer from Southern Thai cuisine. Why don't we just make another restaurant that's actually represent what is missing in the stateside outside of Thailand and do something that's real, that sort of remind people of like where this is coming from. And yeah, it's become its own unique spot that's sort of also giving me confidence of like you can do something that's real, that's authentic, and people will appreciate it.
It's so well said. I mean, it's taking these regional dishes and expanding the audience by offering these restaurants that are single topic, so to speak. Let's go back a little bit. Tell me about moving to Portland from Thailand. You know, via LA, you were there for a short stint. What did you find in Portland, and what led you to open your first restaurant, Thai Cottage, in 2008?
So I first moved to LA to study ESL and stay with my cousin who has a restaurant out there. And I lived there for 6 months, and I feel like environment and people remind me a lot of Bangkok, which I moved from. It doesn't make me feel like I'm living in America. So I didn't enjoy being there as much, and talked to my other friends, and we decided we should move out and explore what it is that America, US has to offer. So we just drove out without any destination, just like drove up north first, and then we stopped at a Thai restaurant in downtown Portland. That's the owner, letting us connect us with her cousin. So we stay with her cousin, and then they find a job, a place to stay. And we feel like this city is, with the people who are so kind and generous and helping each other, make me feel more comfort and more feel like this is the place I wanted to be, more than LA, where people are like more hustling, more sort of like competing, more not really care about each other. So the people is the first factor that I decided this is the city that I like. And then the rain, actually, because where I am from, my dad is from southern Thailand, it's rain a lot. It's like 6 to 8 months as well. So I get used to this like environment that's weather, and with geography that's like mountain, there is oceans surrounded. So it's from a kid who grew up in southern Thailand, you sort of like this family environment that's, I can feel like comfort being here.
I love that sentiment. You know, Gabriel Rucker shares similar thoughts on this episode about the Portland community being so supportive of restaurants. And I love to hear that. I mean, it's clear when you visit there that community is important. Take me to Thai Cottage in 2008. Like, what's this restaurant like? Because, you know, I'm setting this up because, you know, Earl, you won the biggest restaurant award that can be given, Outstanding Restaurant. It's like truly the best picture of the Oscars, and you won it last year for Long Ban, and I got to have a meal there, and we can talk about it. But talk about your foundation.
So the first restaurant is something we just wanted to open just so we can survive and have something for our family. Because in 2008 there was a political conflict in Thailand, and they were shooting in the middle of city, and my mom, being as nice as she is, she volunteered as a nursing camp to help people who got injured while they are shooting right out front. So we feel like it's great that she did that, but it's also not safe for her to be there. So we applied an investor visa for my sister, my brothers, and her to come live here just so we can be away and feel safe as a family, and also open a restaurant. That's something that I know what to do and how to do it. Since I've been here, and what we were doing is work at a restaurant while going to school or do something, and also work in all the position in another Thai restaurant before. So I kind of have the knowledge of how to run a specific kind of restaurant. That's I can train my brothers to be in the kitchen with me, and my sister can run the front of the house, and my mom were helping us doing whatever she wanted to do, so we can take care of her and be together and be safe. So we did that for a year, and I just feel miserable because of the food that we did wasn't what I want to be eating. So back then all the restaurants in Portland are doing sort of the same style of food. So pretty much Americanized Thai food. So I mix all the food that I grew up eating, like noodle dishes. Was the first one that I think about every time that we are not working.
Let's stick there for a second. I have a question. What is this feeling of misery? I mean, this is incredible that you were running a restaurant, you're opening a restaurant, you're serving this food, but you were miserable, not about the business, but about the style of food. What are you serving that is making you miserable, and what are you dreaming of?
It's just a typical like curry with the curry, the watery down curry. That's something that I didn't enjoy as much growing up, and like all the thing that's I see at all the other restaurants is the same dishes like pad thai, pineapple fried rice, or something that's people here sort of know what Thai food is, and they would just when they come to most Thai restaurant back then, they would just go, okay, I want this red curry, yellow curry with this meat that they like, which is not the way we eat back home for the most part. That's like the food that I saw when I first moved to US, especially moved to Portland. And I feel like, okay, this is what people are eating, so we can cook this for them. But what about us when we want actual Thai food? We don't really have any option. So yeah, that's like the food that we could eat occasionally for us. That's just to refill ourselves, just to have something to eat. The flavor is kind of like sweet forward in general, a little bit of spice, not as aromatics. So just something that's majority of the people in the Northwest can have. But yeah, that's sort of like there's a lot more to Thai food.
Let me ask you about getting away from pad thai and thinking about noodles beyond, because you've got pad thai, which is in many different forms in America, and it's a very a beloved dish. But then you're thinking about noodles. So there is a noodle history in Thailand that isn't pad thai, that isn't this one dish that we many know. So how do you think about noodles beyond the pad thai?
So I always go back to like what I grew up eating, like because I always go to the market for our families, and like while I'm doing market run, I would stop by at the boat noodle shop or some other like yentapo, which is a fermented tofu broth, or just a simpler tom yum noodle. So there's a lot of varieties to choose from. So I was like, okay, I miss that. I would wanted to do that kind of food that I hope people would enjoy. So then you can choose like different type of noodle. You can choose different type of broth. You can do a small bowl. You can do a large bowl.
It's the broth. I mean, you think about broth and pad thai, and there's no connection between broth and pad thai. So just that element alone is so cool.
Right. And it's more satisfying to me too. It's like there's more fun, more depth to it. That's spice, sweetness, like this acids all in harmony. That's like completely different than just like the sweeter side noodles that we have back in the day at most places.
Well, I read a terrific piece on Resy from Kat Thompson about it was a profile, and I'd read it was terrific, and I read this really interesting moment in your life. You meet David Thompson, a chef based in Thailand who has written books about Thailand. You'd read the books, but you had never had his food, and you meet him at a food festival in Portland, and it changes your trajectory as a chef. I'd love to hear about that interaction with David in Portland and what it inspired you to do.
So there's a event called Feeds Portland back in the day. That's now I think this been discontinued. And then David was here, and what he served was a grilled mussel with gola sauce, which is a southern Thai sort of like marinade, and just that skewer itself has the really nice aromatics in it that I didn't know what it was. So I was like, whoa, what's going on in this one? And later on, I get to starch at Nam and see the process, the thought behind the depth in it. That's like they actually smoke this mussel. And what they use to smoke is like coconut, lemongrass, galangals in the process that sort of like give this nice aromatics and Thai sense to it. Actually, okay, this is nothing like I have heard or known before as far as like cooking, home cooking or cooking with any other restaurant outside, even in Portland or in Thailand. So that's the element of the dish that makes every dish interesting, even the freshness, the way they poach the ingredients. So I was starching for 2 weeks, and then I was at the salad station. So everything fresh makes to order, and they sort of like poaching thing in coconut instead of like just poach in water or something that I used to at the other kitchen. So I feel like, okay, that's a lot more Thai cuisine that I didn't know about. So I get to learn all those techniques and then was like deep into it and sort of like go back to his book and read and see what more I did not know about in Thai cuisine.
Yeah, it's an amazing story that you kind of rediscover Thai cooking from this guy who visited you in Portland, and you go to Thailand and you visit and you stage, and then you return to Portland with all these ideas. What's it like when you return and you're thinking about growing your group and thinking about the opening of Langbaan, which, you know, as a tasting menu, it is exceptional. I mean,
yeah, back then when after the start, I just feel like, okay, that restaurant Nam was really good, and trying to think of how can we improve upon what is already exists in Thailand. So Nam was offered an a la carte menu, and that was the night that I went and I didn't know what to order. So I ordered several things, but end up being the dish I ordered shouldn't be ordered together. So it sort of like make the experience not as complete. Based out of that, I feel like, okay, how after being in that kitchen, after you know all these flavors of the dish, what to make it more enjoyable, more better experience is you sort of come up with the menu that can go together really well. Like one will have like more high acidity, one will have more spicy, one will be more sweetness. So when you eat all this together, you just sort of like more balance. So that's sort of like the idea behind Langbaan. That's we sort of okay, we're gonna do the main courses go well together. We're gonna offer the food from underrepresented regional in Thailand that hasn't been offered outside of Thailand, and we're gonna change the menu to our regional and throughout the ingredients that we could get here. So there's a sense of place and there's a sense of like discovery when people come in here, and also for us get to do research every month, because back then we changed menu on like very often, like monthly we changed completely.
Wow, that's so much work to do monthly menus.
It was a lot of work. It was a lot of stressful, but after the menus, like after we come up with a menu, we actually enjoy and proud of each one of that and sort of satisfying. It's sort of like feel like I enjoy being in stress, but it's like well rewarded after it's been done, and you sort of like, okay, this is actually a good and more interesting.
Tell me about the current Langbaan that I got to experience. I mean, when I was there, the menu was seafood, and that was a focus. I know you've done street food, you've done Southern, you've done lots of these themes. How does it work today for visiting Langbaan for a meal?
So each menu, so we plan the menu for the whole year, and we look at what it is out here and what hasn't been represented. And beginning of that month, we did a vegan menu for a week because we never done. I mean, in 10 years, we only do vegan menu once, and we feel like, okay, we haven't done this. We should do a vegan menu for a week. And then after that, what else hasn't been done? So we haven't focused on the seafood menu ever. So we should try to offer something that exists in the country, inspired from the seafood dish that we have in Thailand that's hasn't been offered as much outside of Thailand. And then come up with the dish, make sure that that's have roots to the original one, and then bring the ingredients that we can find here locally, both Asian and ingredient that we find from the market, to sort of incorporate into the dish.
Let me ask you, you're in Chicago last summer and you hear your name called for Outstanding Restaurant. Take the stage in Chicago. Biggest award. I mean, I said at the top, but like this is the biggest award in restaurants. What's that like? I mean, that is quite an experience, a heady experience. What's that like?
Something that we never thought we could achieve, to be honest. It's the first time that this award has been given to a restaurant in Oregon. So definitely a big, it was an honor for us to achieve this award, to receive this award. It's definitely a transformative moment for Lang Ban. It marks the first time that Oregon restaurant has received this prestigious honor. It's not only recognized the excellence of the culinary of Lang Ban, but it's also like the contribution that we do to the communities, to the dining scene overall in US. Because after Lang Ban has been open, we have seen a lot more movement as far as Thai restaurant. And then we see a restaurant in New York that's offered really spicy food. I think Ugly Baby was doing a really cool thing. You see a lot more chefs that move to US and start doing their own thing. And they all know about us. So we sort of like, that's quite something that we achieved. So people can be confident and be their own self and cook the food that they know, that they like, and be honest and enjoy doing it.
It's got to be gratifying to see all of these restaurants around the country, the Holy Basils, the Ugly Babies, the places that are doing food that is highly personal and highly regionalized in some ways, and mostly highly personal. And you being the leader, that's got to be really gratifying. Let me ask you, how are the restaurants doing? I mean, you've got this group, and you're clearly on top of the tastes and trends of Portland by opening these restaurants with risk. I mean, you're opening all these restaurants, you're running them in a small city. How do you stay in touch with the tastes and trends, and how are they doing?
I think first of all, we are not a trend chaser. So the restaurant is doing well and also evolving. It's more of like reopening it with intention and identity. So each one has its own identities that represent certain area of the country. And when we do something, we are thinking about this unit as why are we doing it? Is this missing the representation of this cuisine or not? Like, that's the neighborhood needed it or not? That's when we sort of like plan something. Like when we do Yawara, which is a Thai Chinese restaurant, we just feel like, okay, this is underrepresented outside of Thailand, and there's a lot more really cool and interesting dishes we have seen and we grew up eating, and that's really delicious. So we should do it and do it with confidence and do it with more depth knowledge about it. So we did, I think, 3 research trips with the team just to do the testing. Sometimes we even take out and put it in like a thermal bottle and bring it back, either the sauce or the broth, just so we could like that could remind us what it is actually out there, so we can sort of replicate that dish that has been.
Wait, you're bringing back bottles of broth and sauce? You're bringing it back?
Yeah, I ordered. It's like a DoorDash of Thailand. It's called Grab to send to my condo. So I ordered like whatever dish that we like, and then there's some noodle dish that I really like. So I just bought a thermal bottle, pack it in the bottles, pack it in my suitcase, and bring it back, and like have a test between all the chefs that's that's recipe development, and feel like, okay, this is what it is out there. We wanted to represent this cuisine, this region or this area, so we wanted to make it as close as we can, so people kind of like know about this specific spot or region.
That's an incredible scene. Thinking about you returning to Portland, you're in your kitchen and you crack the bottle, this thermal bottle of this broth, and you've got all your staff huddled around. What's that like? That's so cool.
It is cool. So, because after you're living here for a while, you sort of like forget what it tastes like. Then that's sort of like giving you a master like recipe, basically, that you can just taste. Okay, this is what it is. Then we know like what's the first flavor you recognize when you eat it. Then what are we doing? How, like, if it's different, then we know, like, we could write down the flavors profile of this one. Then when we sort of like working on that dish, we have the knowledge of like what's the spice, what's the flavors, what's the aroma on that one. Then we sort of like, okay, this is closest that we can with the ingredients we could get out here in Portland. So it's fun. It's fun for the team. They all like get to do something that they haven't done, and we are proud when we crack the code, because there's certain dish like that looks simple, but it's not as simple. Sometimes we even take like a video of like that spot of like how do they cook it, what's the trick behind so this it looks so simpler, and then like figuring out what did we do wrong, and eventually like be able to figure out. It's fun.
Can we talk about coconut broth? Because at Long Bon, I had coconut broth that I spoke about with Liza. I mean, it really, and I've been to Thailand. I've been lucky enough to go there a couple times, and I've never had anything like it anywhere in the world. It was incredible.
That's a trick, because usually people would just do a coconut milk and season it. What make it unique is, so you sort of buy fresh coconut and roast it whole in a high temperature for probably 15 to 20 minutes, just to get that nice aromatic smokiness of the coconut water. So you add that in, sort of add an element of aromatics to the broth, and sort of like give that uniqueness to that specific dish that most places doesn't have time, or maybe don't know what to do with this to like sort of bring another element to the dish. That's sort of like been kind of a trick to a lot of good curry that we do. So we would add roasted coconut water just to add in sort of bodies and aroma to that.
Your kitchen's amazing. I got to watch it firsthand, some of the prep, but I know there's so much work that's done even ahead of service, so I couldn't see all that great prep work. Well, Earl, this has been a real pleasure catching up with you. I'm really inspired by your work. I think you're such a savvy operator and a talented chef, and I just wish you all the best and success.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
So, Liza, we are back and talking about the visit to Portland. I have a few more restaurants I want to highlight on this amazing trip. So there's a bar, I call it a craft beer bar, called Horse Brass Pub that I have done some research, because when I got this on my recommendation list, I was like, I want to check this out. And apparently this is a bar that really, to get your beer on the tap, it was a bit of a grail for young beer brewers, craft beer brewers. And it was almost like an honor to get on the tap, and it took years sometimes to establish your brewing. So they are well regarded for their craft beer. But as a non-drinker myself, I was curious about it. And I was delighted by the NA menu that I'm going to say emphatically is right now the greatest, to my knowledge, of course, right? And if you have other examples, but it is like the best NA beer and drinks menu I've ever come across in restaurants in America.
High praise. Wow.
High praise. I want to go over the list right now. This is a single menu for NA. They have Bitterburger on tap. More about that later. Two Town Sidekick, Altitude Spritz. They have two Athletics, Best Day, Corona, Deschutes, Guinness, Self-Care, two of those, St. Agrestis, Sierra Nevada, and three Untitled Art. All NA beers. And what I really like is, and I'm stealing this from Jordan, we've talked about NA beers a bit, and he's written about it. When you go to a bar and there's actual NA on draft, which is really rare, you know that they're serious about it, and they have NA beer on draft. So I would recommend this bar, Horse Pub, if you are into craft beer. But to me, on the NA side, I was extremely excited. I tried a few of them, loved it.
Okay, where else did you go?
Well, I got to pay a visit to Hanok. And I want to talk about Hanok because Hanok is by the chef Peter Cho. He was in my book Korea World. I've known Peter for many, many years, since before he moved to Portland and was a chef here in New York City. And Peter's not been on the show yet, and I hope at some point he can get on. But Hanok is truly one of my favorite restaurants doing Korean food in America. It's always exciting. And what's exciting is he switches up the format quite often. And to me, that feels exciting. And I got to pop in for a new menu and to set the table. You know, the restaurant is extremely unique. It's in kind of a former garage with a courtyard. Have you been?
Yeah, I have been before.
Sorry. I'm like explaining something that you've seen. How do you describe it?
No, I'm just agreeing with you that it's in a former garage.
Yeah.
I think if someone is listening and they haven't heard, that's the perfect way to picture it.
Okay, it's like a former garage where there's like an apartment in there. I mean, there's like the kitchen is open. It's really, really cool place. And the menu, I've had menus there where he was doing mostly jongol and like large soups. It was like more of a soup format. I think he's done a kimbap menu in the past. I didn't try that one personally. But this phase of the menu is jipap, which is home cooked food, and which is kind of a broad term, but I think you'll get it as I talk about the cuisine. His mom plays a big role in the menu, and her own kimchi is served as the panchan, but it's $65 a person, which I think is a tremendous value. And the jipap portion, which comes across the table as like a number of small plates, this isn't the typical panchan. It's not like the standard kimchis and namuls and things just for light bites. This is actually a full meal, and I'll explain. They have kale salad with braised mushrooms, these beautiful caramelized carrots with whipped tofu ricotta. They're doing a flounder with fermented Fresno pepper in a broth. They're doing a crab and egg with Dungeness, which is kind of like a garam jim play, which is like the bubbly egg. And that's just the start. And then you select your main, kind of like Kisa in New York is doing this idea, which I think they're kind of doing similar things right now. There's kalbi jim, there's a kimchi cured pork rib, halibut jorum, which I tried and absolutely love. I love that, like, brothier, fish that's cooked down in the most beautiful way. I love a jorum. And then they have these, if you're a vegetarian, they have perilla oil noodles, which I cannot eat enough of. And for dessert, they have coffee jelly tiramisu.
Yum.
Nice closing dish there, Peter Cho. So it's Hanok, and I just love this restaurant. I think if you're in Portland and you want a really unique dining experience, definitely check out Hanok.
Okay, where else should I go?
A few more to go. I have two more restaurants and then another closing shout out. I got to only have lunch here because obviously I've had a lot of food, but I really wanted to check this out. Jordan had recommended it, and it's brand new. It's called Javelina Indigenous Cuisine, and it's a brand new place. I think they opened up earlier this year from the chef Alexa Numkena Anderson, who was born in Yakima, Washington, and grew up on the Yakima Reservation in Washington. I hope I got that right, the pronunciations. But I really enjoyed. I had I had a beautiful salad and a fry bread taco, which had a bison and bean chili with diced tomatoes, sour cream, lettuce on top. So it was kind of like an open taco. Really delicious food. But I'm excited about the evolution of this restaurant. I know it's brand new, and I'm hoping others can write about it and I can check it out. They're doing for dinner, for more heartier dishes, they're doing wild salmon and corn husk, a bison meatloaf, and elk and bison skewers, and the desserts look amazing, incredible. There's a blue corn cake that just spoke to me on the menu, and I hope to go back when I'm back in Portland. It's called Javelina Indigenous Cuisine.
Okay, what's your last restaurant?
Last one, you may have heard about it, guys. It's called Lovely's 50/50. Yeah, you been?
Yeah, pizza?
Yeah,
Yeah.
pizza. No, I'm stupid. I didn't realize this was the restaurant featured on Netflix's Chef's Table Pizza Edition. One of the 4 chefs featured. There are 5 or 6. I don't know. It was a very small note. So, like, this is a Netflix Chef's Table restaurant, which means
Big lines.
I waited for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I got there at 5, I put my name on the list, and it's like 90 at 5. So,
It's a lot.
not my style. And I got to hang out on Mississippi Avenue, so I got to like walk around Mississippi and really catch up with the hood, and tomorrow night I got a nice time. When we were waiting, and then we like hung out in the restaurant a little bit, but 90 minutes is a long fucking time, and the quote was accurate. I was like, oh yeah, 90, they'll call us in 45. No, it was like a legit 90-minute wait. But I would say, was it worth it? Was it worth it? Yes, it was worth it. It was a delicious pizza. If waiting for pizza is your thing, and you're in a city and you want to try new pizza and exciting pizza, New York, I wouldn't wait 90 minutes because we've got great pizza here. Portland maybe has less options, but the pizzas are from the chef Sarah Minnick, who again was featured on that Chef's Table episode, that memorable episode that I've not watched, but many have said it's one of the better ones of that series. And it was spring again, so I was trying out lots of spring pizzas. One had fava, pea greens, and green garlic with scallions and taleggio. Taleggio as a pizza cheese, underrated.
Sounds really good.
Super underrated, great pizza. I also had one with wild ramps and amaranth and roasted spring onions and with a sheep feta. So I was going kind of that lighter white sauce pie style. I wasn't really doing tomatoes on this visit. And I would say the style is like the Neapolitan, very quick rise in the hot oven. They came out really dark. I think that's maybe their point of view, maybe a little darker than I like from Neapolitan. Didn't really hold me back at all. I loved it. It was terrific pizza. If the wait was 10 minutes, I'd be like, damn, this is an exceptional pizza, but it was a 90-minute wait. Anyways, it's not really, we don't need to talk about the wait anymore. It was just a really good experience, and it stands up to the hype. It's Lovely's 50/50.
I do like Lovely's, but you haven't mentioned my favorite Portland restaurant. I've been waiting this whole time.
I know. I couldn't go to your place. Please shout it out. Please.
Okay, I mean, it's an establishment, but Nong's Kamangai for Thai chicken and rice is famous for a good reason, I would say.
Okay, here's the story about Nong's. The plan was
Have
there.
you been before?
2 times.
Okay, that's okay.
2 times or 3. I mean, literally when I was doing the book, when I was shooting the book with Alex and Dookie, we went right from the airport. I mean, like,
as long as you've been, I think
yes.
You don't have to go back if you're trying to eat at like 20 other places. But I will say, so simple, so good. If there was locations in New York, I would have it for lunch like every day.
So basically, it's like a Hainese style chicken, but I mean, it's like boiled chicken, and it's the cleanest, most pristine chicken you're gonna have. It's just so delicious.
Beautiful broth that has like ginger and pandan and garlic and the kind of chili sauce you put on top. It's so good.
Rice with that broth. The broth is really the best part. You're right.
That's my spot. But you said you have one more for the trip, right?
Well, I have one more mention, and is where I stayed because I'd stayed there 15 years ago on my very first trip to Portland. And I got to go there again, and I was so happy to make a return visit to the Kennedy School, which is part of McMenamins. It's been operating for 20 plus years, and it's up in Northeast. It's in a wonderful neighborhood. If you want to be in a great neighborhood and great location when you're in Portland, definitely stay at the Kennedy School. So Kennedy School is an old school, and it still feels very much like a school. Like the hallways are like walking down the hallways of an elementary school, very high ceilings. What's cool is there's multiple bars. There's a small cocktail bar. There's a beer bar. There's a restaurant there. They have a movie theater in the hotel that plays second run theater. I think it's like $5 a ticket. Really, really comfy seats. And they have a warm bath there, like a warm pool. That it's more of a community space. So I think it's not like fully a hotel. There's like lots of folks from the neighborhood going in the pool, going to the movie theater, and love the vibe there. And I will keep going back to Kennedy School, and that's my hotel rec for visiting Portland.
I'm so glad you had such a good and delicious trip.
Thanks, Eliza, for letting me indulge. I mean, it was such a great trip, and really hope we can go back. Maybe me, you, and Clayton can go back for some on the ground reporting.
Yeah, sounds like I will have a lot of spots to check out either way.
Thanks for catching up, Eliza.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
This is Taste is hosted and produced by Eliza Barbanal and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.